Welcome you everybody, ready for a deep dive into today's crazy climate news. It's February 12th, 2025, and let me tell you, there's a lot to unpack.
Absolutely. A real mix today. We've got breaking news, some deep analysis, even an international perspective.
Wildfires are first up. We've got those Eaton and Palisades fires right here in LA. But here's the thing, it's not just us.
Right. Take Patagonia or Argentina. They're battling huge blazes down there, too.
It's like the whole planet's heating up.
Yeah, and these wildfires are a global trend. Sadly, it's all connected to climate change. Higher temps, dry conditions, longer fire seasons, that's the recipe. We're seeing these fires more often, they're burning hotter and longer, and it's probably going to keep getting worse.
It's scary, especially for those Californians who thought a trip south would mean escaping fire season. I was reading about these folks vacationing in Patagonia, ended up running from wildfires in both places.
Wow, talk about bad luck. And speaking of the aftermath here in LA, the rebuilding process is sparking some interesting conversations.
Yeah, they're really trying to build back better, right? Stricter safety codes, going all electric to lower those fire risks, even community-focused designs that are more fire resistant. It's about planning for the future.
Totally. But it's tough balancing getting people back home quickly with making sure those homes are actually safer from future fires. And get this, some experts are saying just clearing all the brush around LA could backfire.
Really. Seems like less fuel would mean less fire, right?
Not necessarily. Turns out that native chaparral we often clear out is actually super important for the ecosystem. Getting rid of it could let invasive species take over, and those can actually be more flammable. Shows you we need smarter fire management, not just blanket solutions.
It's complicated. And then there's that whole soil contamination issue after these fires. I was shocked to learn the feds are skipping soil testing after the LA cleanup.
That is concerning. Wildfires release all sorts of nasty stuff, heavy metals, asbestos from buildings, the list goes on. Without proper testing and cleanup, you're looking at potential health risks down the road.
Definitely a worry. And on top of that, we've got the financial fallout. The California FAA plan, it's that safety net for homeowners who can't get regular insurance. Well, just got a $1 billion bailout after the LA fires. Guess who's paying for that?
All of us, basically. It all boils down to higher insurance costs across the state. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Climate change is hitting the insurance industry hard. More extreme weather, more payouts, those costs get passed on to us. Makes you wonder about insurance in high-risk areas. Will it even be affordable?
All right, let's switch gears a bit. The political scene's been buzzing with climate news lately, and gotta say, the Trump administration is keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, one minute it's promoting clean energy, the next it's halting offshore wind and freezing clean energy funding.
It's confusing, and what's wild is that funding freeze, it's actually hitting Republican districts the hardest.
Ironic, right? A lot of those clean energy projects were in those districts, bringing jobs and boosting their economies. Now those same districts are feeling the squeeze from the cuts.
Climate change doesn't play politics, it affects everyone. Speaking of confusing, the courts have been weighing in too.
Yeah, that funding freeze has turned into a legal battle. Back and forth court orders, environmental groups, and scientists are stuck in limbo.
Creates a whole lot of uncertainty. Researchers don't know if their projects can continue. Organizations are unsure about promised funds. It could really hurt important research and conservation work.
It highlights how political choices have real-world consequences for science.
Makes you wonder about the motivation behind it all. Is it all about politics and ideology? Or are there lobbyists at play, pushing fossil fuel interests?
It's a fair question. We can't deny the influence of industry lobbies, especially those tied to fossil fuels. They hold a lot of sway, likely playing a role in shaping these decisions.
It's a reminder to be aware of those power dynamics, how they influence climate policy. Today's choices have a ripple effect, could even derail progress toward U.S. climate goals.
Couldn't agree more. What we do now will shape the future, and there's a lot to consider. This is just the start. Welcome back, everyone. We're digging deeper into today's climate and environmental news.
We've covered a lot already, from those crazy wildfires to all the political back and forth. What about some global trends now?
You know what struck me? There was a report from Germany about the growing global security risks because of climate change.
Yeah, that was a sobering read, basically saying climate change makes existing conflicts worse and creates new ones.
Right. The report highlighted climate-driven migration, not enough resources, political instability, all leading to more tensions, even armed conflicts around the world.
It's a wake-up call, you know? Climate change isn't just an environmental issue. It's security, it's economics, it's humanitarian. We need a global response.
Absolutely. Global cooperation, supporting those developing countries as they adapt to the changes and shift to cleaner energy.
Speaking of global trends, did you see Turkey's now Europe's biggest fossil fuel polluter? They've passed Germany?
It's a big shift, showing how complicated it is to cut global emissions. Some countries are getting off fossil fuels while others are increasing, driven by economic growth, industrial development, or just weak environmental policies.
We need to hold all countries accountable for their emissions, not just the usual suspects.
Exactly. It's about global emissions reduction, no matter where they're coming from, working together on this.
Let's talk energy now. Seems like every day there's something new in clean energy. What's caught your eye?
The growth of solar power, especially in the U.S., has been encouraging. Solar installations keep getting cheaper, making them competitive with fossil fuels, even without government help.
It's awesome to see the market driving this change. Shows clean energy is not just good for the planet, it's good business.
Totally. Creating jobs, boosting local economies, and getting us off those fossil fuels. Win-win-win.
Of course, there are bumps in the road. Remember that fire at the California battery plant? Showed we need tough safety rules and have to make sure that whole clean energy supply chain is sustainable.
Definitely a reminder, as we transition to a cleaner energy future, the tech we use has to be safe, sustainable, ethically sourced.
Speaking of ethically sourced, China banning those rare earth metal exports really shook things up.
It did. Those metals are key for a lot of clean energy tech, and China restricting exports showed how risky it is to depend on one country for these resources.
A wake-up call for the U.S. and others to diversify, invest in domestic production of those minerals, and work together globally for a secure and sustainable clean energy future.
Exactly. The switch to clean energy isn't just about technology, it's geopolitical too.
On a lighter note, remember when Trump reversed that plastic straw ban?
The great straw debate, right? Small issue maybe, but it brought up a bigger conversation about convenience, accessibility, and being environmentally responsible.
Sometimes those little things have a big impact. We need solutions that take care of all those things, practical, accessible, and actually effective.
For sure. Often takes compromise and finding some middle ground.
That was a whirlwind, global trends and energy issues. What's up next?
Back to the U.S., a big policy shift is brewing.
What is it?
Trump's thinking about a major overhaul of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency,
Dismantling FEMA. What's the thinking there?
giving local officials more control over disaster aid. That's the idea. Makes things more efficient, more responsive. Local officials are on the ground and they know what their communities need.
But doesn't FEMA have the experience and resources for those big disasters, especially with climate change making them worse?
That's the other side of the argument. Some worry states can't handle it alone. Could mean delays, not enough help, especially in those catastrophic events.
Tough decision. It's about balancing federal oversight with letting local communities take charge.
With climate change and more frequent, more intense disasters, gotta make sure we have a system that works. Important debate to follow.
Back for the final part of our deep dive, we've traveled from California wildfires to the White House, even gone global.
It's amazing how connected everything is, from local wildfire recovery to security risks worldwide, and those geopolitical forces shaping the future of energy.
It could be a lot to process, Feels like every day brings a new climate challenge.
I hear you. The news can be overwhelming. But remember, knowledge is power. Understanding all this is how we build a better, stronger future.
Absolutely. And even with all these challenges, there are bright spots. We've got amazing renewable energy tech. People all over the world are waking up to climate risks, and communities are coming together to demand action.
Yeah, there's this energy building coming from businesses, governments, people like you and me. We're all starting to realize we need to act. And now.
As we wrap up, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Climate change is getting worse. The political landscape is changing. What can you as an individual do to help build a more sustainable, resilient world?
Think about it. What changes can you make in your own life? How can you speak up for change in your community? What groups are out there doing the work, the ones you can support?
Every little bit counts.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into today's news. We hope you learned something, maybe even feels a little inspired. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and get involved.
And remember, we all have the power to create a better future. Say it too.